welcome to Abnormal Presence Touring Talkies. I'm Kamla Iyer. Today, our sartorial Safa takes us on a journey of revivals of forgotten designs and motifs and innovations to conserve handlooms. This journey will take us through various states of India, as our expert today cannot be confined to just one state. She truly believes, and her work embodies that belief, that India is a treasure trove of weaves, each reflective of the local culture. Her work with weavers over 45 years is across the country, the majority of them being from the southern states. She has never turned away a weaver from her door. Pavitra Aunty of Vimor is back with us this week to talk about some of her revival and innovation projects to conserve handlooms and sustain livelihoods. Welcome back, Pavitra Aunty, and thank you so much for taking time again to take us through some of the revivals and innovation work on handlooms that you've done that empower your weavers as well as create sustain livelihoods. So for the first such weave, I mean, no such discussion is complete if we didn't talk about the iconic Puja sari and Vimor's efforts. So the sari has obviously been made so popular by Mrs. Gandhi and Pupul Jaikarji. And please talk us through the journey of the Puja Ikat sari actually as to, when was the original sari conceived or worn by Mrs. Gandhi, and what work did Vimor do thereafter to create versions of the sari till its current avatar in 2020 as we speak. So just talk us through this, the enigma of the Puja sari.
Okay, for the beginning, I'm wearing one also, a simple
Nice.
cotton one. Okay. This started with us getting an original from Mr. Bandari when I told you he was the antique dealer who gave us those saris. And the first ones went even to the Calico Museum, to Mrs. Gandhi, to everyone through Mrs. Jaika because she was the main buyer, to cottage industries and everywhere else. So that is the time it has gone to a lot of temple saris, a lot of originals have gone to both Mrs. Gandhi and the museum and everyone else who Mrs. Jaika was connected to. We started this Puja sari in, I think, 1977. 74, we started Vimor. I think in 77, by which time we had we were a little stabilized financially, and we realized that we had a weaver from Dharmavaram who kept coming and asking us for some work, And I thought, why not try a simple puja? So I gave the first simple silk puja there. And see, at that point of time, I didn't know much. We didn't have that much knowledge or experience or anything, But it came out very successfully. And it was in a lightweight sari, and we put cream for the border. And in the pallu, there was just a little bit of tinge of zari, but it went on very well. And I mean, it helped us also sort of really be set financially. And there was such a demand till sometime we got fed up of. We were contemplating on stopping this puja, the plain puja sari. It was in a lightweight. And at that point of time, we were thinking, God, we've got to stop this, because by which time we had moved on to doing some other designs and experimenting with other things. But one day we had the weaver's brother-in-law come with a young boy home, and he says, oh, this man passed away. So what happened is we were stuck high and dry saying, you have to continue this design because this boy is in the 9th standard. And he has to support his entire family. And we were taken aback because we did not know what else to do. I mean, we can't leave a young boy like that. So we said, okay, we will continue with the design. And we had to rethink everything. So we continued with the Silk Puja design in Dharmavaram. But the twist to it is we started doing Kasuti on the puja. Okay. And we worked with Mr. Sullad in Hubli. He's a national award winner. So it was great because it benefited everyone. This boy could get through the 10th standard till he decided what to do and how to stabilize his family. So it gave it gave him financial stability. The Kasuti man benefited. So it went on for another 2 years just because this gentleman from Dharmavaram passed away. And then we realized we should do the checks. Slowly we became with little more guts. But at that time in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, nobody was willing to do the ikat, which was in the original. So I substituted it for, I don't know, it was just one of those things that clicked. I really can't put a reason to it. So I started with a dotted line there through it. And there were a lot of fights because everyone said, are you mad? This kind of thing can't be done, blah, blah. So I said, no, you just do it. So we did it with the dotted line. This was again Mr. G.M. Swami Deva. He was a very well-known weaver and very enthusiastic. So we did the puja sari with him. I mean, he was one of the pioneers who started the whole thing there. We started it. But in the Molkalmuru version, we put the kalsha. It's a different kind of a palu. It had the kalsha. So that went on for so long, and he just grew by leaps and bounds. So big he became. Then from that, we took that same version. Every time a weaver came, we would take it and give it to someone else who could do a little different version of it. So we did the same kalsha in a place near Kanchi. We did it. So that was the kalsha palu. Then from that, at that point of time, I was always in doubt. I had a doubt that this was from Molkalmuru because it's something we call the Guinea adike, the bird.
Yeah.
Looked closest to this in the palu. Though, I mean, the style was different, closest similarity. And that's when I embarked on a documentation with the India Foundation for Arts, gave me a grant to look at it. I thought it was something simple because with so many years of working in Molkalmuru, I've known this place since my father's day. It was very difficult. We just weren't able to succeed. So I thought at this point of time, if I have some material and I research it, maybe then I'll be able to make them understand what they've inherited. So that's when I went into doing this documentation, and it was amazing because there was not a single piece in Molkalmuru per se there. So everything had to come back to our collection and our work. But it led me to tracking the migration of how weavers migrated from different areas, bringing different elements. So right across Andhra, Karnataka, and a little bit of Maharashtra is where I sort of put it. And it was only based on oral history because there was no fabric samples available. So it was just putting two and two together, talking to these old men, saying was it like this, was it like that? In the bargain, it was a great discovery because so many other things came to light to me. And it was a great learning. So from then, that's when I realized that it was from that region as such. But subsequently, when I really have looked at it, there are so many different versions of the puja. There is not one version of it. We've got 8 odd samples of it with each different palus, different thing. One even had a Manipuri palu. So it was sort of, do you pin it down to only one place, or from there did it move on to other places? That's something that you could always look at. From that puja, we did a cotton version. I think most of you know him as Satyamurthy from Kanchipuram. That is his father, who I worked with for the first cotton puja. Okay, and at that time he was just refusing to do it, Mr. Vardarajan. So he said, no, I can't do that, I can't do that. And then I said, nothing doing, try it. So I did the cotton puja with the Manipuri palu through them. And it was done in Vadamanapakam. It's a village close to Kanchipuram. And because he said, I can't do this, I said, okay, change the border. I said he can't do something else because he wasn't willing to do even Dabi at that time. So I substituted the border and the pallu and even the checks. That time I said, put a a dotted line across the checks to look like that. And he said, no, are you crazy? This, that. So we've always had fights with all these people who have to say something else. But in the finally, it was just a few years ago till my daughter kept saying, everyone's asking, how come the border is different? Then I looked at it. Yeah, I said, I changed the border. I changed the body. I changed everything. And the inspiration for the pallu is we had old sample of a Manipuri pallu, but the placement and everything was a little different. So, I mean, to suit my aesthetic sensibilities and whatever I thought would look nice, I did that. And it turned out so well, and it's been in continuous production for so many years, you know. In fact, now everyone says, oh, they're going to make it in Paolo. So the thing is, in this cotton puja, I'd like to say it's been so many years, at least 35 years, it's gone on continuously, more than 35 years. It's gone across in Kanchi, Vadamanapakam, Gumadipundi, Salem, Chirala. It's gone across different regions. So we didn't have a hold on it. I didn't tell him now, okay, this is my design and only you have to supply me. I mean, I've always felt that if they have to grow beyond us because we are not growing. And if they have, naturally, if they have to, we want them to grow, then it has to be. So I've always let go of my designs. And it's amazing that today people come bringing me a sari and saying, oh, do you know, this design goes very well. Will you give me an order? And I said, my God, it began here with us. In the silk version, it's very interesting. When we started the checks, we started with one Mr. Govind, that he passed away. He was a very dear, it was like my mother's son, like, you know. So we did it with him. And then we went to another person, Tulsi Ram. So when we did our 45-year exhibition, we had all these people who came and spoke about what the puja meant for them. You know, how they built their lives just based on that. At this point, I'd also like to say that now I realize that it was our generosity that let it go and give it over to everyone to have ownership, you know. So, like in one place we did plain, the other place we did stripes, the other place we did checks. So, even at that time, without knowing it, we kept different things so that everyone can survive with it, you know, without saying 10 people do the plain one, 10 people do the checked. And I think that made a lot of difference in people's lives. And a small thing is, there's a place called Sevur near Army, and one of the weavers brought it and he said, oh, you don't grumble before I open the packet. I know you're going to grumble, but don't say anything. I said, okay. He said, so I looked at it and definitely it wouldn't have been something I would have approved of because it wasn't a perfect square. But then the next sentence he said is, everyone is coming into my house, everyone is coming and looking at it and telling me I will place an order of so many pieces, so many pieces. And I just had to tell you this. You know, I mean, that's the sense of integrity. I don't know that at that distance what is happening. It's not that I had that ownership, but when he told me, I said, as long as it's putting food on the table for so many people, go ahead. I mean, I want the check. Somebody else want the rectangle, and he's willing to buy it that way. So it's fine. And I think everyone who owns a puja sari has that version of this. It was lighter weight, it was cheaper, and it was amazing. I mean, in the sense, it had a very simple take on what we had done, you know. So that was it. Then it went into polyester, it went into dupattas, it went into yard. Yeah, so it is. So what I feel is, this is an example. Why I talk is not that I want to, I mean, I say that, okay, only I did it. Other people would have also done it. But the fact is, just on a design, how much of livelihoods and how much of support it gives. So my belief is always a design, you know, I mean, the creative person can alter and can do anything with it to create so much of support and livelihood opportunity for so many weavers. And some things that have been tried and tested, it's easy enough to take up the same thing and go ahead. No, you don't need to look for new markets as such. So
Correct.
that is a great. So in that sense, there's no risk when doing all these things. You know, and people ask me, oh, why did you let it go? You should have had ownership. I mean, I think the more I've let go, the thing is I've been more creative. So I don't believe in that. You know, I don't believe in saying, oh, I did this, I did this, I did this. And so I'm just happy. And that was, when you see people wearing it and something else, okay, you think of a little story of how it came about. But it's quite unconnected that otherwise.
It's a very
Yeah.
interesting, absolutely interesting journey. And, you know, the Puja Sari itself has seen so many years of renewal and revival and innovation in
Correct.
design. And it's a very good example of how a design has sustained livelihoods. And that's what
Yeah,
the
for me, that's important. Yeah.
correct.
The other important thing is about this Manipuri Palo. Again, I mean, I talk about commonality and something to celebrate how we are so interconnected. That kind of a motive is something in the Northeast.
Correct.
Okay, when I was young, I didn't know any other name, so I said Manipuri Palo. But the question is, okay, trade did happen between Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, the rest of India to the Northeast, and it has come back somewhere through that. So I think we need to acknowledge that. I mean, you can be inspired and make it your own, and that is exactly what these are. And from the version that I did to now what is available, it's totally quite different. But each one adds his own take on it, and maybe some things are difficult and some things he compromises on making it a little simpler. It's fine as long as he caters to a market and he earns from it. I think it's done its job. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. And I think,
Yeah.
like you rightly said, designs, or, innovations have no borders. So therefore it's not a provenance of a particular weave. It's India. And, the sensibilities may vary from region to region, but ultimately there are so many similarities in our weaves that it's absolutely astounding the amount of, knowledge that is there among these weavers across geographies within India itself. I'm wearing another one of your wonderful innovations. It's one of my favorites from you, the
Yeah.
Kumat, as you call it.
Go much. Yeah.
You know, and I know this has also got a very interesting story. So do you want to tell us about?
Okay, this story, I was doing the Rajasthan Heritage Week, so that was done for 4 years continuously. And in the first year, I mean, to begin with, I know zero Hindi, at least colloquial Hindi is very bad. But ever since I had seen these rugs and cushion covers that most homes have, I was always saying I must do something with it, something with it. So in the second year, I went off to Gomat and I sat with these Urmul people. And this man, Mr. Revat Ram, huffing and puffing, nahi hoga, nahi hoga, nahi hoga, is all that I could hear. And here I was busy trying to convince him at every level, and he was saying no. And I said, no, I'm going to get you two looms. Even if it's a failure, it's my issue, and I will pay for the damaged one. So why are you just do as I say. So I think they had never done a sari before. They had done one more than 20 years ago that weighed about 2.5 kgs. And so I substituted a lot of things. It was literally did things, and he couldn't understand why I was so insistent. But I said, you do it, and it came out beautifully. So in this place, I've been very careful to, in most areas, I've kept the motif the same thing. It's the Patu technique they use. And so we've just varied it. And I gave them all the kind of structure, the different kinds of yarn, what to do with it. And it came out so beautifully. He's so thrilled. And he's the point of contact for all my Rajasthan distribution that is going on. So it's amazing. And he had the entire TV crew come there because it was put out for the fashion show. And there was a lot of people who were rushing to say, oh, we'll put it under our project, we'll do this, we'll do this. And this gentleman calls me and he says, all these people are there. I am telling them, why should I give it to anyone when she has come all this way and done it? And till I learn whatever I have to learn from her, I'm going to hang on to what she can teach me. So now my promise, I mean, earlier I said, okay, we'll teach you silk. So till then, now he's after me to get onto silk. But otherwise, it's beautiful. So this is the kind of thing. These people are beautiful people. I mean, I have not said don't give it to anyone, this, that, but that sense of integrity, that sense of, that, okay, you've done it, you've learned from me. Now, how can I sort of bypass you and go to someone else? It's an unwritten code. And that is what is amazing. The value systems is amazing. Yeah, that's why we called it the Gomat. So this man called me and he told me in the first year we called it as Gomat, and he begged me. He said, put your children's name on it. Don't call it Gomat, because I have all these high ranking officials who come in all these big car, and then they insist that I want this, I want that. and it becomes very difficult to be able to say no all the time. So, I mean, this is the practical issue. So he says, please call it after your daughter and son, or give any other name, but please don't even mention it. Why do you need to say that this sari was done in this village? Why do you need? So when he questioned me, I was saying, what is wrong? It is there. He says, but this is the issues we face. You know, sometimes it's very difficult. We can't say no. You know, sometimes, and this is it, then it's like almost that I'm giving away your design. I said, I had no issue about it.
Bobat is the name of the place. This is the name of the village.
Yeah, the name of the place where they were doing it.
Okay.
And yeah, he was hounded by a lot of people, you know. And this has happened in another place in Dausa where I did work in Rajasthan. It was a khadi center. They were making plain fabric. So talking of that, I took Gotapati, that is very well known in Rajasthan, and I put it into the sari, because they couldn't understand when I started. They couldn't understand my Hindi, and here all the designers were with their computer, and I'm with my sketch pen drawing away, and whatever I was doing, they couldn't understand, you know. So finally, I said the best thing is to travel across. So 2 days I traveled about 1,500 or 1,800 kilometers, went to each village, sat there, and I said, just do as I say. And as I say, the loom has no language. So they just put this Gotapati in, and it came out beautifully. They've had orders of 800 pieces for that. As
Wow.
I said, it's God's grace. You know, wherever we've done a design, it has gone on to having a big sale. You know, that is it, impacting so many lives. So I feel great about it. That was it. And the other place that we did work in Rajasthan was Kaitun with Badrunisa. Connect with most of my weavers has been a really very personal connect. I think that is my biggest thing, that they are able to associate and interact with me without any kind of saying, I'm so and so, you're so and so. There's no class barrier at all. So they feel very free like that. You know.
You've learned from the best, Pavitra auntie. Your mother had that personal connect with her weavers, and you keep saying, and with her clients as well. You keep saying she remembers
Client, yeah, she
birthdays,
has a
stuff like that. I think you've learned from the best, and you kind of follow that tradition through. You know, some of these things are just so naturally passed through the DNA process, I guess. Amazing.
I
Like,
know we've been lucky. I must say we've been lucky. As I said, in 45 years, we've just had one bounce check. Only two weavers who tried to sort of cheat me. One weaver sort of owed us money. So the other weaver said, how could you do that to them? They made it their agenda to uh, get back that money for us. That's the kind of connect we have, you know. I mean, it's amazing.
you mentioned the lungi, and I know Vimor is very famous for its colorful, beautiful
Oh
lungi.
God.
Became a sari. Could you tell us something about that? This is one of
Oh,
the
it was quite hilarious. You know, someone wrote and said Vimor is famous for its lungi sari. I said, after all this work, now finally you get known for something so vague. So actually, my son wanted to do a line of lungis, and I think he had seen these barefoot lungis in Sri Lanka, no, those kind of things. So I said, okay, then why not do this? It's not so difficult, really. I mean, with our experience. So we set to do this in Karnataka, and then we did it even in Rajasthan. And it's been selling well. Then a lot of women came and said, that's not fair. Why can't you make it into a sari? So that became into a sari. Then the one weaver to the second weaver couldn't understand the concept. So I said, lungi is about 2 meters plus, you know, and the sari is 5.5. So I said, okay, make two of it. He landed up making two different parts of the lungi in two different things. So that became a design. Everyone, oh, that's lovely, that's lovely. So often it's hilarious that either it's a mistake or something else, and then how it progresses totally. And then you rectify it, you know, but you give them the space to say, okay, do it. He couldn't understand what I was saying, so he did that. So the lungi sari has come to stay. And again, in that, technically, I changed a lot of technical things in a simple piece. So to have a good drape, you know, and there's a lot of resistance when you tell weavers do that. They say, no, that's not what, it's not done. And I want to work. I didn't work with the steel reeds. I worked with the Jawar stem reed, and it made a lot of difference. So I could just change whatever construction I wanted accordingly. And that's why the drape is very good. In our cotton saris, again, it's important to make things that are not very difficult to maintain. It falls easily. You hardly need to iron it and things like that. Again, going back to old saris is something which was my library and study material. You studied it, you didn't need to starch it, you didn't need to do anything. So by studying it closely, you learn all these things over the years, and that's how it came to be. So the lungi sari is finally, it's a joke. Vimor is known for it. There's nothing extraordinary about it, but yeah, it has had a good sale. It looks fabulous on stage.
Yes, it does.
Especially, I've done some fashion shows with Prasad Vidapa, and he's draped all these guys in the lungis, and on stage it looks beautiful. So first time, I mean, I couldn't understand all these things till I saw it on the stage, really.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I have a couple of lungi saris and I just love it. Absolutely. Just drapes any which way. It's an effortless drape actually.
It
So
has a good drape, yeah. That's it.
what are the other, innovations or revivals you'd like to talk about with us today?
So another very successful story, which all of you would know, is about this natural fiber person from near Chennai, Anakaputtur, C. Shekhar. Okay, he's been associated with me long, long ago, many years ago. So when he came to me, he was just making jute fabric and cotton. So I told him, I gave him a little sample, and I said, only when it works out well, then you come back to me. He was so prompt, he was back within 15 days with it, and we've never gone back since. So to create that piece is what I did is we kept the body cotton. I introduced silk in the pallu, and we kept jute and banana and vetiver, whatever kind of fiber it was. And from there, it was amazing because then I took him to Times of India and had a write-up about him. So it was kind of his first exposure into all this. I wanted to keep the medium uh, in the natural fibers of jute, banana, and different fibers. And he would try out all kinds of fiber, and he's got a Limca book record for the most number of natural fibers. So the shawl that he put for Narendra Modi with all the different varieties of natural fibers in it, and he said that is still your design. See, I do a design and let go of it. We had a great sale at Fab India, things like that. So normally when they've done well, we always allow them to carry on with the design. We did a phase of Akshara, the alphabet as a script. So I did this for Jaya Jetli, and we used the Kannada script. It's come out well again. Then during my training programs, another successful thing that we did is I started using a lot of waste fibers, waste things, fabric and all kinds for training because I wanted to cut the cost down. So when these women learn, it will be easy for them. We used to do these 2-month government training programs. So we made a lot of rugs with waste yarn. They used to be a waste market near in Bangalore. So irrespective, we did not know much about where, what, how, but we just took it, just touch and feel, and we went by it, and it was amazing. And it was in a place called Adakmaranahalli, in another place near, it was called Huvin Hadagali, that was in Bellary, and Horekere Devarapura, near, just beyond Hollalkere it was. So these kind of things opened my mind out to something that I'd never ever done, because doing these training community, though the product came out well, and then I got external master trainers to come and help them, but I couldn't deal with the kind of politics, the block development officer, the panchayat. That was the biggest stumbling block for me that I faced. So it was fabulous, and the kind of questions these women would ask. And in my life, this was the first time we did this place in Horekere Devarapura. We had a list. So I called the list. I said, okay, we're going to start the program. And then some women who didn't show up, so many others, we said, okay, put their name and let's start from tomorrow. So the day of when we started the whole weaving program, I had 2 people come and bang the door. And the person in charge said, no, the program has started, so we don't want any more new people. And she just shouted saying, do you know what poverty is? Have you ever sent your children to bed hungry? These kind of things just shocked me, because in my life I had never had to answer this. I mean, we are privileged, definitely, but when she said that, I just was so shaken. And so then I asked the rest of the group, I said, can we take her in, though it is 20 people? Can we take her in? And things like that. There are certain government guidelines for all that. And it was without hesitation, all that group of women said, take these two people in. We will lose, we will give up part of our stipend if you can accommodate them. I mean, the kind of magnanimity, the kind of kindness was something, and I will never forget that place, because it's left such a deep impact on me. I mean, each one was poor, but they were willing to share, and be kind to the rest of them. And then I would stay there a couple of days till we set up all these. So they would invite me for dinner and say, La Madam Ore, you have to come. So I would feel guilty, because they were really very poor. And when I went for dinner, what would I see? Just a sambar, just a dal and a rice, and pickle. The only privilege, because I was a guest, was the appalam, a fried appalam. I mean, it really, I was just so taken aback, and it is sort of, I mean, I was kind, but this kind of it sensitized me so much. It was amazing. And in those days, you couldn't stay in a house where uh, there was a man living in the house. So whoever husband was traveling in the village and out, I would stay in their house with my, it was my, or what was the sleeping bag. So my mother couldn't understand why I would do all these things, but it gave me a lot of satisfaction to go and challenge myself in these small little areas. That was something. It was amazing. And I don't know, these kind of things you never get to see, you never get to hear. People who would, give up something for someone else to be included. I mean, all these are great lessons that have come, and I've been lucky to be having experienced these. That's it. There's no end to innovation. As a creative person, there's no, you can't say, okay, this is it. Something can inspire you, something can start off a whole thought process that brings it out, And as I said, a simple thing like what we did even with Sea Shaker, missing lines, knotting it in simple things, all these kind of things. It's very simple, no extra cost, no extra machine, nothing, no previous experience. That is what it is. And even when I have done all these training programs, these were for non-weavers, okay? And you don't need, see, this is what I say, weaving and textiles and things, anything embroidery, you don't need so much experience at all. And it's perfect to look at it as an employment generation, because you don't need a previous skill. This is something that's teachable, something that totally depends on you. If you want to take it forward, you practice a little more and you can get there. There are a lot of people who've done all this without previous experience at all. I think a lot of them are driven because of a need to stabilize and have a financial independence. But also, once they get the hang of it, they're driven because they want to empower themselves. They want to grow. I mean, it's a personal growth then. Beginning can be a reason for to have a stable income. But I think beyond that, how they grow is, again, you want to they challenge themselves. So like in Gadag, we are having these girls, we've started just with a 1 month embroidery, they've done fabulously. And now their aim is, oh, I'm going to open a Gagara shop. I'm going to do this. Only thing they need is hand holding and a kind of a support system for some time, which we are in a better position to give them just a little bit of guidance. Sure. Then I think there's nothing to stop them. And with innovation, again, I'd like to say it is so huge. You can innovate with techniques, with fiber, with any kind of material. There is no limit to it, As I said, and today, I think the example of seeing such beautiful things in the market itself is a great example. How you look at the kind of products and it amazes you what kind of creative work is coming out from all parts of India. And it's just amazing. So I think there's space for everyone. It's not that anyone's competing with anyone, but I think the way it is, yeah, and textiles is a place where everyone can survive. There is no question of, okay, me at somebody else's cost. There's no need for that at all.
Auntie, I also know you've done some interesting work with the Kambli weavers, right?
Amazing. Actually, we during our 45-year, we called him for a storytelling session. He's called Neelakant Mama. We put it up, and it was just brilliant the way he was explaining that. Look at what the urban person can learn from us. We don't take away too much from nature. We enrich the soil by grazing the sheep in the ground, and we are giving you companies. I mean, in the cold. So one of them, in fact, had a beautiful piece that he had done, and I was intrigued by it because it was a three-way kind of a weave. So we have put his name for the Matan Singh Award, and I'm happy to say that he got the award.
Oh, nice.
Okay, he's sharing the award with someone else, and we were to go. I was supposed to accompany him to Delhi to get the award, but then this COVID happens. Now I promised, hopefully my next project is I want to work with them and across there, because they don't see much future. So hopefully we should look at it, and we will be doing some work with the Kambli people, definitely. I mean, that's my promise to them. And the thing is, it's not like the other sari weavers who have any other option. There is no other option, and they're pastoralists, and they have beautiful stories. Some point of time, we've recorded a lot of their stories also. So it was
I managed to
amazing.
be one of them for the 45th year. Your record.
Yeah, you heard that? Yeah, you heard that. Yeah. That's the man who's called Neelakant Mama, and the other man who's got the Martan Singh Award.
Okay.
Yeah, both of them. Yeah. Those are the people. Correct.
So one other weave I thought I should ask you, and you're probably the best person who can shed light on this, is this famous weave which has been called the Simhasan weave, right? And it's got some Cambodian ancestry or whatever. So could you tell us what exactly is the Simhasan weave?
Okay, the Simhasan was part of our temple sari. Mr. Bandari had supplied us the sari. See, at that point of time, you must understand he didn't have a background in textiles. He was just a trader. So every sari came with some kind of a name. Okay, that's how he called this the Simhasana, and there was no connection to anything else per se. So the sari was chosen for the Festival of India in Great Britain. That was in the 80s. So Mr. Martan Singh, Mapu as we fondly call him, had got this done at Viva Service Center. I was quite involved with all this during that time, during the Festival of India. There were a couple of our saris that was taken for the festival, produced in Viva Service Center. And that time when he put the sari to reproduce in Viva Service Center, we did not know what name to call it, where it was from, what it was. So he decided to name it the Nanjappa sari after my mother. Okay, so it was called Nanjappa sari. But then even when Rita wrote the book, also it was there. And what was done at the Viva Service Center wasn't as beautiful as what the original was. And I had a lot of discussions with Mapu, because I would say, why are you using this colors, things like that. Subsequently, when we took up the production, so the sample of ours was in Viva Service Center, like the puja is also in the Viva Service Center. A lot of our saris are in the Viva Service Center that we had done. See, at that time, it was just the cause of textiles. We didn't think, oh, we needed to take back everything. So it was there. When we took up production for the design, we called it the Nanjappa and the Simhasana. But before that, I met a Cambodian textile person when I had gone to the Sutra conference in Calcutta. Immediately, he told me that this is from Cambodia. I said, how? He said, look at it, and this is, look at what the difference is. The center is a diamond, but everything else is very typically like what you would find in the Southeast Asian textiles and things like that. Then when I came back home, we had 3 pieces. 3 or 4 pieces. The 2 were like sarongs. And it was right, So then when you really look at Southeast Asian textiles, you find such a lot of commonality in it. So it is of Cambodian origin. And a lot has been written. People claim it is from the Mysore Palace. It's this, it's that. I don't know. A lot of stories are built on a lot of things. So there is no connection. Simhasana is like a throne. Okay, this, and in a time of 100 years, anything that would have been elaborate for a throne would have only been done in gold. You couldn't have imagined a plain silk sari with just work having done. So that I don't buy that at all, because it came from us. Everything started with us, so it's not. But the thing is, Tamil Nadu had connection between Tamil Nadu and Southeast Asia. There was a lot of trade, okay, and you could always trace it back. So it's most likely from there. It's most likely from Tamil Nadu. There's no two ways that it couldn't have been from Karnataka at all, from what I know. And for me, design wise, what was a thrill was, it was brilliant because when you studied it, as I have studied all that old textiles, and that's where my knowledge has come. It's one diamond that has been broken into half, quartered, elongated. So the core of it has taken one central design and just varied it. So it opened the doors for me to also look at design, take one core design and look at how I could manipulate it in different ways. That was a great learning for me. So how it got into a lot of production is Mr. Vanjre Ramesh from Molkalmuru. He's also very closely known to me. So he took it from Viva Service Center and he took up the production of it, like the puja, like this, all of it, the Simhasana, that's how he took up the production of that Simhasana. But everyone will write, oh, it's from Karnataka. It definitely is not. I mean, I'm very sure about it. And we've got 3 other samples to go by that and to understand it. As I said, a lot of names were, see, at that time, we did not know anything. So whoever supplied whatever name, we took that name. But now what I do when I do revival is I always call it by the person who owned that sari, like it's their grandmother. So if I'm doing somebody's sari who was named Kamala, the sari stays as Kamala. Unless I'm able to identify which exact region it came from. If I'm not able to identify, I think it's better to honor the wearer and so call it after them. So most people who's given me their grandmother's sari, we name it after them instead of trying to say this is from that region, this region, when we're not sure of it, As I said, it's very difficult to pinpoint exactly which region sometimes. So I name it after the person who won it. That is what we've done, and that's what the Simhasana is. And I think historically you'll find the connection between Tamil Nadu and Southeast Asia through trade. So that sort of clarifies the origins of it, in that sense. That's what I would say.
How some stories, in social media, there is so much of provenance seeking individuals who go in search of the origin of the sari, and there is so much of stuff out there in the net. And I've heard all these stories which you've spoken about Simhasana. So I thought it's best to hear from you, because I know you had a connection with that sari. So it's very interesting how some of these stories start off like this and then they just become truths, for years to come.
Yeah, because actually, in the absence of any written documentation,
Yeah.
it's very difficult to pinpoint. So my point is, unlike the textiles that were done for royalty or commission, they were written about. So those are very authentic, okay, But a lot of common man's textiles about which were not documented, it's very difficult to really say that this is that. Unless you talk to older authorities like Jasleen Dameja, and she has seen textiles and worked with Kamala Devi in those days. So those kind of people have deep knowledge. So I've been very lucky to also show so many textiles to her to be able to understand a lot of it, As I said, we've interacted with a lot of people who come and everyone tells you something and that adds to your knowledge. That's how a lot of things. And then over the years, like you study the kind of zari. So then it's not from a certain place. You just look small little things, just add up really. It's not any one big thing as such. So that is, that's how I go about.
It's interesting. Knowledge is never ending, right? You never know. You can never know enough of something, which is so brilliant.
It's never ending. Yeah. The field is too vast to be able to know everything also.
Correct. Yes. So, Auntie, can you tell us something about the kind of people you've been exposed to, like Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay or Popul Jekar and the Mija, etc. You've been fortunate that you've seen them when you were a young girl, and kind of walked around them and learned from them. Tell us what it was like to kind of interact with them.
See, now I'm older, wiser, and then I appreciate it now. Okay, at that time, I did not appreciate having them in and out of my house and being able to tell me, do this, do that. And I used to think, God, they're so old and they're so vain and they're so particular. And why are they being so sticky about certain things, you know? Of course, I have a lot of I have tremendous respect, much more now than I did when I was younger, because I can understand the kind of work they did. You know, at that time, I would think, they would say, do that and give me a design, or say, do this and insist. So there was one particular incident. So if we did those broad borders, what now people call chettinad, we did that years ago. We started in a place called Nagaldini. That was in the 70s. Okay, that was 76. What those broad border things. So those days, no one made those thick kind of cottons, and both she and Pupil were very appreciative. So as a rule, if we did anything new, it had to be one had to be kept aside for Kamala Devi to come and see, and And what was beautiful is she would always come with a little handicraft to my mother, and always spend time seeing what it is. And when she left, she would always say, God bless you for doing this work. I mean, it was something that always she was truly appreciative of what we put in. And they were very fond of my mother. There was no two ways about it. But they thought they could groom me and tell me. So once when she gave me a sari, temple sari, and say, I want a reproduction, do it. So I said, I'll do it at the Weaver Service Center. She said, no, do it at the Technical Design Center. Design Center at Weaver Service, on Victoria Road. I said, I don't want to do it there. The loom is so bad. The weaver is not good. She just wouldn't hear of it, And she said, no, you have to, you insist, because she was in charge of all these design centers. So I had no option, but it was just so difficult to get it done. Finally, when the sari came, I wasn't happy. And when I gave it to her, she just stared at me, because obviously I didn't have a smile on my face. And she said, why are you looking like this? And that was one excuse I just took off. I said, yeah, you wanted me to do it like this, like that, blah, 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 blah. Now look at it. I was just let steam off telling her why it turned out badly. And all that after when I finished, she said, I don't want excuses from you. God, I was so upset. I was almost in tears. And my mother didn't open her mouth to say anything to support me, to say I did put in all the effort, and the result wasn't good. I mean, it wasn't because I did not make an attempt. I felt very let down, but few minutes later, she said, sit down next to me, and she sat me down and she told me, if I didn't think it was in you, I wouldn't have insisted. She said, work around the problems. Don't make excuses. So today, this don't make excuses is my line. So if a weaver says something, I said, don't make excuses. But at that time, I would think, why were they so fastidious? One shade of mustard, one line moving out here. Why did they have to make so many issues? So that was an amazing thing. And I feel there are certain things that I feel now I should have listened to her. Like she wanted me to get, Chandramoli was a very well-known vegetable diet person who used to be at the design center, and she wanted me to get the samples of all the ilkals she had with him. So many things. So she would question me so much, and I used to think it was a nuisance, really. Really, at that time, you don't realize the value of it, and check this out, let me know, find this for me. I mean, in between all this, where would I have the time, energy, and effort? And I didn't think it was of any importance at such time. The other person is Mrs. Jaikar. She used to, as she was my mother's guru, so my mother always was in awe of her also. So she'd come in and out. As I told you, she was a great support. That when we started our business, at least after a year, when we were able to do something, at least because of cottage industries, she was able to take all our saris and supply to cottage industries, Mrs. Gandhi, and the Calico Museum. And when she told me, she told my mom, let her go to Viva Service Center. And I said, I can't draw. And then the whole drama of saying, no, when you've grown up with beautiful things, it'll come. And one thing she did tell me at one time, I was saying, oh, wow, do you know this artist is there, that is there. She came so often, so I was very freely talking all this, And she said at that time, she said, don't only copy, you should have something of your own, put something of your own into it. And I think along the journey, it's allowed me to experiment and say, okay, I need to, what is it that I can do little differently from what was? So that's something I really appreciate about that is Mrs. Jaika's word to me, saying put something of your own into it. It should have something of what you are. So I think that's helped me a lot, given me the kind of courage and confidence, because in the beginning I would be scared, God, if I do all this, will it sell? What will happen? But now over time, I realized that actually putting my own individual uh, part of the design into it has helped it. So it won't, so it has, I suppose that's where you say their experience, their kind of commitment and things like that. And got to meet so many fabulous people during the Festival of India. A lot of work was happening in Madras at that time. So if you were free at anything, they'd call you to the Kanchipuram Weaver Service Center or wherever in Madras. So we got to be part of a lot of things. So it's nostalgic now looking back. All these great artists were there, from Hussein to Adi Mullan to everyone was in and out. And at that time, as I said, all that we do is give the paint there, put a line there, fill in this. Those are the kind of things you just had to hang around and help out in whatever. But it was great experience.
Excellent. It just sounds itself so inspiring. And you're right. When you're going through that, you're probably thinking, "Oh my God, I'm the youngest out here. They're using me to do all kinds of jobs." But those are things which kind of stand you in good stead as you grow older.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think the greatest takeaway is, if today I'm relevant, it's an example of pure goodwill. We've never advertised for one day. And yet, if we've been able to sell saris from the president to the governor to everyone else, it's amazing. And we've had a lot of big people who I've refused, like the governor of Karnataka. She wanted to come into the store, and it happened to be my friend's wedding. And they said that she's speaking from the governor's place. And I said, I'm so sorry, but I can't accommodate you. I've got a wedding to go to. So I said, okay, I'll adjust on the way to the airport. You come. And she said, I just had to see who was so cheeky. It created such a lifelong friendship with them. So they came for my wedding, and then they hosted a dinner when I got married. And people couldn't understand what was the political connection. It was simple things like this. I just stood my ground, but it's part of, and with everyone else, we've never misused them for our publicity or anything. Only now when I look at some old big books, I see all people from Khushwant Singh down to everyone who signed their names and addresses, because we never took their signatures. They used to write those addresses. And, like even when Khushwant Singh came, my mom said, oh, wow, who is it? Everyone else who comes, we just suddenly say, oh, God, we've seen his face somewhere else. We're not able to figure out. After they've gone, we say, oh, so. But I think, they like that anonymity. They don't like, they like the fact that we don't ask for photograph, anything. So we've kept it simple like that. And that's the way we've been. We've stuck to whatever we believe in. That is it.
And that's why we all love, shopping at Vimor, or, interacting with it's like, it's not like a shop, because you also maintain the fact that it is a shop come house. So it kind of feels so homely to come and see you in Bangalore, talk to Rukta, talk to, Arup. And it's just like a family atmosphere. And I think that's beautiful that you've been able to continue with that, and long may that continue, Auntie.
Thank you. Yeah.
For your all your ventures. May you continue to have an impact on many weavers and many livelihoods in times to come. And thank you so much for giving me so much time and patience over 2 episodes to actually talk to you in so much detail. Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope it comes in useful to the others. That's it.
Thank you for watching our weekly episodes of Abnormal Presence Touring Talkies. Do leave your comments, suggestions, and feedback on the video right below the video. We will be back with newer episodes, so please stay tuned to our Facebook page and Instagram page for updates on our future episodes. Thank you very much.